So we've a lot to get through, actually. There's plenty going on, even though not much sport at the weekend just gone. Of the sport just gone, we touched yesterday with Donnacha Boyle and Conor McKeown on the first airing of the new rules at intercounty level, Galway against Kildare, namely. Donnacha had been at that game in Newbridge. And James emailed in to say, lads, just listening to the discussion of rule changes, I keep hearing it mentioned how will these rules work at club level, especially junior level in particular, the 3-up rule. Have any of you played junior football or watched it lately? I can't say I have, to be honest, James. He says the disease of 15 behind the ball has not infected Junior C. There is a minimum of 4 forwards up front at all times! Exclamation mark. He's probably implying they're not tracking back.
Yeah.
He says the back chat to referees will be the rule that affects the most change at that level. Says James, fair?
Yeah, and that's a great email, and he's right. And there is that concern all the time. How is the per club referee going to marshal this? They'll marshal it the same way they try to marshal everything. It's already hard enough, and they get things wrong, and we just carry on.
Well, I think isn't that the key point about that level of refereeing? They're rubbish anyway.
Yeah.
They're making loads of mistakes. They're just going to make a few more mistakes on top of the many they're making already.
And that's why the rule that most concerns me is the back chat. I know we're trying to cut that out to dissent, but I just worry that could... I feel like dissent for some referees is basically dependent on how narky they're feeling from one week to the other, or how much they don't like a player or a team, or I feel like that can happen.
That's the northern tradition in you coming out.
But in certain parishes, the referee will know all the players. He'll be like, "Oh Jesus, Timmy," and then he just moves it forward 50. You know what I mean? Like, that's not dissent. That's just.
Are you still allowed to say, "Oh Jesus, ref"?
I don't think so. No, that's dissent. Like,
No,
He will be sometimes. That's the problem.
Okay, but in real, sorry, not letter of the law. I mean, at club level, can you say Jesus, Timmy?
Yeah.
When you know the referee.
Like, the referee can say, no, you can't do that. So
but that's the problem, though. The double standards of he could feel an Jesus, Timmy is fair game in the first 10 minutes, but in the second half he might change his mind, and then there's double standards.
Yeah.
There's a ref in Derry from Stockneal called Play On Sean.
Email in if you're listening.
Yeah. Still nothing from Protestant Dave, by the way.
Nothing.
Starting to wonder if he exists.
That's disappointing.
Again, don't reach out through any of your people to get in touch with him. It has to happen naturally.
Tempted to try and just give it a little nudge.
No, we just have to hear from him naturally. So we should mention Conan, working away in the background, has set up our own YouTube page, which is very exciting. So if you're on YouTube, search Indo Sport and you'll get everything that we do there. You'll still see us on the Irish Independent YouTube page. We won't suddenly migrate and disappear from there. But if you just want us, then Indo Sport is the place to go. Well done.
Thank you.
As of today, we'd had one view.
Yeah, I think it was me as well.
I think so.
We'll be doubling up for a while, but I think Ronan might work on some prizes or something that we can give away for subscribers or something.
What would be a good number of subscribers by this very week next year, 2026?
Wow. Am I putting a target live on air on my job?
Well, what would you be happy with?
I'd be delighted if we got over the 1,000 mark.
Oof.
Is that modest?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Well, let's take that and work with it from there.
You only have 1,000 next year, you're fired.
I'm not saying we stop at 1,000. I'm saying let's get to 1,000 and we all say job well done.
To get to 1,000.
Sorry, it'll be 1,000 by the end of February.
Yeah. Well, Ronan works on these prizes that he keeps talking about, and we can.
We could give away 2 tickets to our historical reenactment at the Ambassador Theatre, which is also doubling up as a rugby live event.
That's a beautiful segue. Last piece of business from me. We gave you all the details in our live show announcement. You'll see it on your feed as we speak. It is on the 29th of January. We're going to do various sports across the year, live shows, but our rugby offering is coming on the 29th of January, 3 days out from Ireland, England, at the Aviva Stadium in the Six Nations. The guests will be on stage together, Martin Johnson and Keith Wood. I know. I do enjoy a good whistle, Ronan. So if you want to come along to that, ticketmaster.ie and search for Indo Sport. That is the best way to find the tickets. Ticketmaster.ie, search for Indo Sport. We would love to see you there. Show will start at 7:30. Okay. Rory Gallaher, Jarlath Burns intervention is one of the big stories of the week. Naas, who are 4 in a row Kildare champions, pushing for 5, very much pushing to do things in Leinster, big ambitions. So the story arrived yesterday that Rory Gallaher would be joining their backroom team, not as the manager, but as part of the backroom team. And then within the same day, a U-turn on Naas's part, which had happened over the weekend. We kind of got the beginning and the end of the story all on the same day, a slight lag in how things had happened. So the Rory Gallaher situation, I think everybody's very familiar with at large. He was the Derry manager. Things were going extremely well under Gallaher for Derry. And then his wife, Nicola Gallaher, took to Facebook in 2023 and she talked about years of silence in her relationship with Rory Gallaher, posted extremely serious allegations, alleged domestic violence over a period of years. Rory Gallaher said the allegations, quote, have been investigated and dealt with by the relevant authorities, end quote. That marked the end of his Derry tenure straight away. He missed the Ulster final, which was on that week. So it was all very dramatic and fast moving. And to date, that has marked the end of his inter-county tenure. The PPS, which is the DPP equivalent up north, confirmed it had received 2 investigation files from the PSNI in 22, but it did not progress further than that. So we hadn't heard too much of Rory Gallaher. Late last year, when the Derry vacancy was continuing and Gallaher was linked with it for a time, he did release a statement through his lawyer. And in that statement, he denied his guilt. And he stated as well that he, quote, fully intends to return to inter-county management in the near future. Now, the Derry return never happened. And that was that. And I suppose most of the inter-county posts are taken, if not all of them, at this stage. And then the Naas story arrived. So it seems that the key intervention here, on foot of the news that Gallaher had been appointed as part of the Naas backroom team, came from the GAA president, Jarlath Burns, by email. So on the same day that Jarlath Burns emailed Naas, their executive met that evening and decided not to include Gallaher in their backroom team. So Colm Keys had the story for the Irish Independent, big exclusive story from Colm, and he writes, a decision to end interest in Gallaher was taken by the Naas executive, who had met after contact on the issue earlier that day from GAA President Jarlath Burns, who was understood to have expressed concern by email at the potential wider implications for Naas. And it seems in this email as well, according to Colm Keys, that Burns very much referenced the GAA's role in the Game Changer project. This is a project which is trying to raise awareness and action through sport to tackle domestic, sexual and gender-based violence. So Burns, it seems, referenced the Game Changer project in this email. The Naas executive took heed and they have rescinded, I suppose, their offer to Rory Gallaher. So it's an extraordinary intervention on the behalf of the president of the GAA. I say extraordinary. I don't necessarily mean I'm critical of it. I suppose a few thoughts. One, whilst cognizant that Rory Gallaher has denied the allegations are so severe and you just can't unsee them. And Nicola Gallagher's received huge support from the general public. So you could look at Burns and say, there is real leadership at show here. This is a man with a strong moral compass, could have easily stayed away from the quote-unquote controversy here and let Naas figure this out for themselves, but he took action in a very strong way. Whether, that's within his remit or not, I don't really know. I'm not au fait with, the particulars of GAA convention, but he felt, I'm empowered to do this, I'm going to do this. And so he did it. The reason I suppose extraordinary, probably unprecedented, and also does now open a degree of Pandora's box. This is an incredible precedent to set. There are any number of players in the GAA, perhaps managers too, with very checkered histories on a whole array of issues. There's even a situation, obviously, in Armagh, which we can say very, very little about, but that will jump to people's minds, I'm sure. So with this precedent, and it's like proved decisive, Naas have taken heed. The GAA president has emailed us, okay, they seem to have taken heed. For a future, I don't want to start naming names because it's hard. How do you get the perfect equivalent for what Gallagher's been accused of? But Kyle Hayes has obviously been through the courts, for instance. Any number of cases which may arise. You're talking about a huge cross-section of society. There are going to be very serious mistakes made, I'm sure, in the years ahead. Is it now going to be, well, you spoke out on Rory Gallaher, where are you now? Is he almost self-appointed the arbiter of who can play, who can't play, who can manage, who cannot manage that almost could be the long-lasting ramification here for the rest of his presidency. Next president may come in and be very much ambassadorial. Burns is like a man of action, the FRC, he's doing things, and this very much ties in with that. But it's a big precedent to set.
And multiple things can be true at once. Like you're right, Jarlath Burns, on one hand, might be seen to be taking action, and if he didn't do anything, like he did receive some criticism for not speaking out around the Armagh thing, which is obviously tricky to speak out around at the time.
Far too early a stage.
I think we mentioned it at the time when the stories came out, but he could also have received criticism for standing by and letting something like this happen. So on one hand, you can see why he would want to get involved.
Do you think he would have received any criticism for not speaking about the Gallaher appointment?
Probably less so. It's a fair point, but like the thing about Jarlath Burns is, and I don't think we can remove it or should. I know he's GA president now. I know he's the head of the entire organisation, but he got that because of who he was. He was the quintessential club man. He got it. He knows GA. He knows GA people. He cares for the values and the morals and the ethics of it all, and he cares about the culture that we create in the island. I don't think we should remove that from Jarlath Burns in the position he's in now. I know that is trickier when you are in that position now, but I think that's what we wanted in a GA president. Not necessarily this intervention, but that person. So him acting wouldn't be completely out of line with how he is sort of taken to this role anyway. But I do agree. I think the phrase that's jumping out to me is a rod for your own back almost now. It's like, do you look around all the counties, all the convictions? There's plenty out there.
Yeah.
Maybe the difference here is that Rory Gallaher, and he's not going in as a manager, but he's a figurehead. Maybe there's something to that where this is somebody who would be leading a team. But then there's also the contradictions of Rory Gallaher is currently working with a club team or has been.
Well, that jumped out to me because I said to you just before we came in, Gallaher's been, and including 2023 after his wife Nicola had posted the allegations online, and after the ending of his time with Derry, he was pictured working with Corduff in Monaghan, and he still is. He's coaching Corduff in 2025, and even if the Naas thing hadn't fallen through, even if he was working away with Naas, he was still very much going to be coaching Corduff in Monaghan, which begs the question: is that okay? Why is that okay? Is the maybe has Jarlath Burns sent emails to Corduff and they've been ignored? Has he not been in touch with Corduff? Is it just because he was sort of doing that since 2023 before I became president, so I sort of didn't intervene, but with a new appointment and all future appointments I'll intervene again? So that is the first question Jarlath Burns will be asked now when he does media. Why is he still coaching at Corduff if you feel it's so wrong? Have you been in touch with Corduff? All these kind of questions. Again, I'm not saying this in a Jarlath Burns has really done the wrong thing here.
Yeah.
I'm just highlighting it's a really big thing to have done, and he's now opened a Pandora's box.
Yeah. He said a precedent, but what I'm curious about is it a precedent for Jarlath Burns? Is it a precedent for the office of GA president? Is it a precedent for the GAA? You know what I mean? Like, is Jarlath Burns' successor is this going to be a point of parallel for the next person who takes that office, where we cite this thing that happened in 2025 where the president intervened on moral grounds?
Yeah.
Or is it just Jarlath Burns taking a solo run?
See, that's an interesting question. I'd like to see the email. Did he sign off? Did he use his @gaa.ie email address, or was it just a private my Gmail, Jarlath Burns? I'm coming to you as a member. Now, of course, you can't separate the two, but to your point, these are interesting questions. Was it an official, this is from the president of the GAA, very much signed, or was it almost a private communication? We don't know, and there's a subtle difference there. But to your point, I think it's a really interesting one. The GAA presidency has always been a role open to interpretation. Some have been very, very active. Sean Kelly's built a political career almost on how active he was. Others, the previous one to Burns, inactive.
Barry McCarthy, yeah.
Just like, and so the next president might be one who comes in and says, well, I'm very much a ceremonial kind of person here, so I'll intervene in very little. But that person will,
no, 100%.
will now face questions. Well, hang on, Burns intervened in something like this and now you're not.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a short presidency,
Yeah.
Like, it won't be long until that next person's in situ, and who knows where Rory Gallagher will be at that stage? You know, like Rory Gallagher's ambition has seemingly not been, it has not dissipated from, you know, he's had a few knockbacks at this stage in terms of his pursuits, not least at inter-county level. And I don't think this is the last of Rory Gallagher being offered jobs or pursuing jobs. So, yeah, I just think Jarlath Burns has nailed his colours to the mast, but it's GAA Inc. that he's affiliated with now, and they're the ones who've kind of put a roadblock on this move.
Yeah.
So will that continue when he leaves, or is he just...
Well, I guess that comes down to, when you say GAA Inc., he has struck me, Burns, as the type of president who is acting... I don't want to say like a lone wolf. I'm sure he has the support of people in there, and he's conciliatory to everybody, but a little bit of a lone wolf in the best sense, that he's decisive. FRC, Jim Gavin, I'm driving this, off we go. And so I think it's really interesting. It will be really interesting to know, did Jarlath Burns sit down with the DG and the executive at Croke Park and say, I'm thinking about reaching out to NACE on behalf of the GAA, and this is what I'm going to say. Are we all in agreement that's the right thing to do? Or did Jarlath Burns say, my heart says this is wrong, I'm sending an email?
I think it's massive if he didn't do the former.
The question is how much, I know, I get it that they are intertwined and he is representing the GAA, but how much of it can he still be Jarlath Burns, the GAA man, as well?
I think for these 3 years, in a situation like this, almost not at all.
Yeah, because
he's the president.
It's upon the authority of his office that this has been successful, as in his intervention has worked. Because if it was just a well thought of, respected, high profile GAA figure emailed NACE or those concerned, they would have taken it on board. But whereas this is a diktat more or less from the top.
But yeah, and that's obviously somewhat true, but it's not a diktat either. I get that.
Well,
basically,
if it came to the fore that he intervened and they ignored him, they ignored the president of GAA.
But it was a letter expressing concerns. It wasn't like, do not do that.
I know.
And I get like that is
That's
different
fair,
when the GAA president.
They could have ignored it.
They could have. And the other thing is, I think maybe what's happened most here, Jarlath Burns, is that he's maybe made the story even bigger than what it would have been, and maybe that's okay too. But like maybe NACE would have gotten to this point themselves. I already saw pressure that they were under. I saw groups working with victims of sexual assault that were speaking out, people in the local community speaking out. NACE might have gotten there anyway, but Jarlath Burns has taken what, I don't want to minimise the story, but what would have been more of a sidebar story. Rory Gallaher's gone into another club, like, oh, shame on that club. But now it's like front page story for a week, and we're chatting about it here, and he has probably made it way bigger than it was going to be.
Let's extend the invitation to Jarlath Burns to come in and talk about what's been a remarkable presidency at large. But to be fair, in this instance, there are certain details that we don't know. We've almost asked the question about the nature of his intervention, and I guess we'll see what transpires over the coming days. But that's certainly the big news in GAA this past week. I suspect like huge numbers of people will be very supportive of Burns. This is exactly the type of president we want. Others maybe won't be so sure. Has he overstepped the mark? We didn't touch on it yesterday. The sporting story, I suppose, of the Christmas period, maybe Premier League aside, or very much in conjunction with Premier League, is Luke Littler, who at 17 has gone one better than last year. He is world champion. I was just reading a summation of it from Jonathan Liu, where he says, Premier League champion, Grand Slam champion, slew of victories across 8 different countries in the Pro Tour, the European Tour, the World Series, 9 dart finishes falling out of his sleeves. Had he not also gone on to win his first World Championship at the age of 17, we would still be toasting one of the most remarkable full debut seasons ever seen in the sports professional era. Now, after beating Michael van Gerwen in Friday's final, Littler talks of bridging the gap to Phil Taylor, who's only a mere 15 world titles ahead of him. I didn't see loads of the darts over Christmas, just here, there and everywhere and busy, but I did sit down to watch the final in the expectation that it would be a roller coaster and close and dramatic like the vast majority of finals tend to be. And half an hour in, I thought, bloody hell, this is a routine way to win your first.
And I kept waiting for the turn to come. I kept waiting for Van Gerwen to march. We were in on Friday morning before the darts talking about what a perfect final it was, because the 2 semi-finals obviously had elements to marvel at. It had bunting, as well, but they weren't good contests. So, and usually when that happens, it's set up for a good final. It's like, yeah, we've got the two best, Van Gerwen and Luke Littler, definitely the two best. Here we go. Let's enjoy this final. And the pressure just never came from Van Gerwen, and I think it's in part just the consistency. Like, this is the phenomenal thing of Luke Littler, just his ability to stay so consistent, just hitting over those averages constantly, over 100, bang, 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 non-stop. And even when he's behind in a leg, putting the other player under pressure, just constant pressure or constant domination. A 17-year-old, like, I speculated on Friday that Van Gerwen would be too much for him, like, mentally. He's too young. He can't deal with that pressure. He felt it in the final last year against Luke Humphries when Humphries got a run on him and won 5 sets in a row then to win it. But, like, Luke Littler, a year on at 17 years of age is like a different beast.
But there was a couple of instances where he was clear ahead, but it wasn't beyond the realms of possibility that a similar mishap might occur and he might be reeled back in. And I would say turning the screw, but Van Gerwen had some impressive checkouts and did what Conan's impression the other day of the boom. You want to do it again?
Boom!
Yeah, and I was like, oh, really good. And then 180 from Luke Littler. Yeah. Twice he did that. And so Van Gerwen finishes a leg in impressive fashion, and then Luke Littler starts with a 180. Both times you're like,
yeah,
he's just not flustered.
And it's worth noting that it's probably never been harder to win a world championship. Now, I don't want to get into the Phil Taylor comparisons because I actually think it's very disrespectful to Phil Taylor. Win a world match play tournament first, Luke Littler, then you've got one of each, one of the Triple Crown each, and then do that 16 times, and then you're getting up to Phil Taylor levels. Now, he's starting way earlier than Phil Taylor did, so he definitely has that on his side. But he's also doing it in a time when there's so many potential winners. Like, in the last 10 years, there's been 9 different winners. Van Gerwen hasn't won it since 2019, and he's the only one that's anywhere near Phil Taylor's record in the grand scheme of trophies all over the world. So he's still knocking around the fact that he dominated him in the final, but there's still a long way to go to get to Phil Taylor levels where people are trying to make those comparisons. But I mean, this guy has done it right into, he's 58 when he gets to the final against Rob Cross in 2018. I mean, Phil Taylor has done it from the 90s to 2000s to the 2010s, which I think was the greatest era, definitely through 2015 to, I suppose, maybe the last 10 years, in fairness. But Phil Taylor came back there as an older player and still was able to compete at that level.
Yeah, it is remarkable. I don't have a great feel for what kind of person he is.
No, well, he's a kid. Like, I met him in Munich airport randomly, as in we were in the same waiting room, like getting ready to board flight. So he had just won the Polish Masters, I think. And I was like, when you see someone in public, you're like, it doesn't make you can't relay the person you've seen on TV to the person in real life. And he was just there, and he's after winning some prize money at the Polish Masters, and he's just like, he's a kid, like.
Was he on his Game Boy?
Yeah, no, but you think he's walking around with his family. You're just struck that he's not. He doesn't have a huge entourage or anything like that.
Is he still living with his family?
Yeah, well, he's saying Christmas dinner at home, like as normal, like the much publicized stuff. Like, he loves a kebab and he spends his prize money on EA Sports FIFA points. That's.
What does that mean?
Ultimate Team?
No.
So you haven't played PlayStation since the 20th century, so I think he plays online.
Can you buy points to be better at FIFA?
No, I think you buy players, you get packs, and you might get Neymar and John McGinn in one pack. Or
do you not just I'll be Man United, you be Liverpool?
Oh, you can still do that, yeah.
Do that, yeah.
So
kids don't do that, though.
Do they not?
No.
Do they build
Ultimate Team? They want to build. This is why EA Sports have pounced on the phenomenon where kids support players, not.
So you build your own dream team,
more or less. But it's not as if you can't just put it back, to use your parlance, Joe. You can't just have Roberto Carlos at left back and
I was gonna say,
or 9 up front. Like, you have to work on the packs that you're given. So you could have Andy Robertson left back, Chris Wood up front.
But is Luke Littler cheating the system? Is he gone all Man City on the packs?
He's so much money, you can just buy as many as you want.
So is he buying the best of the best?
I assume so. I think Shane outside was saying he got some affiliation with Xbox off the back of this. He was answering these questions in a very sincere way.
Yeah.
What are you going to spend your money on? And he's like, FIFA.
He plays darts as a means to be a better FIFA player.
And does he talk does he talk about his like psychology? And because I obviously saw him in the interview, he talked about how he'd watched back the previous year's final that day. So there's obviously serious smarts there as well. That's a very interesting move on the day of the final to watch back the final from the year before, looking for things he could learn from it. So there's a very serious competitor in there somewhere beneath the kebab talk and the and the FIFA points talk.
That's the thing. Like his talent doesn't exist on an island either. You know, there's a mental fortitude required on that stage to actually perform and do it consistently. The thing me and Colin cited last week is that everyone's really happy and friendly with him. Like you need someone to be a bit mean. Like we thought Van Garen was going to do that, and he did a little bit, but it wasn't as if.
Oh, I thought he was pretty nice to him.
Yeah, you need someone that's really gonna like. You need to. What was Halgrimsson's term? Be a bit of a bastard.
Yeah.
You need someone to ruffle his feathers, see how he deals with that. But like bullying a 16-year-old is not the best look. So I don't know who's actually going to be the one to do that.
Well, he'll be 18 next year, so it's fair game then. And he's the champion, so it's like everybody's coming for him next year. And there's, like we talked about, there's a massive pack that'll be coming for him, and that is the beauty of sports
pack.
Why it's so hard in this era is that, like, obviously when you're playing against somebody who's on it, that puts you off as well. Like it's way easier to keep performing when you're not put under pressure, but when other people are doing well, and that's why I thought that Luke Littler would suffer. And it's funny, like the psychology element you're talking about. Sometimes I looked at him and they always comment on, look at him strutting around the stage there, and I always thought, nah, it's too. He's too aware. He's too aware of the cameras. Too aware of the crowd. Why wouldn't he be 17? He's on the world stage. And I just thought that was too much of a distraction, and it didn't prove to be at all. So maybe that's how he keeps focused, by just keep looking at the crowd, keep smiling.
And the classic thing is happening where the darts purists don't like him because he's mainstream. Like he's too big for darts. Are you familiar with this phenomenon?
No.
Where like this is our thing, and it's getting too popular in the mainstream because Luke Littler is like appearing on chat shows and stuff, and your darts purist is a bit like, he's not as good as...
Phil Taylor had crossed that Rubicon too.
I know, but I think this is different though.
This is a phenomenon.
Well, like Phil Taylor, there's New York Times write-ups about Luke Littler, you know?
Okay.
There weren't about Phil Taylor.
The Ali Pali crowd don't strike me as trying to keep things low-key though.
Yeah, but I don't know. I saw some tweets like he'll never be as good as X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, he's like 11 years old and like he's won the world title, so I think he'd be all right.
All right, steady on. I was already doing that with the Phil Taylor stuff. I'm just saying that he has a long way to go to be Phil Taylor.
One last one from me, because I want to touch on the Robbie Keane story. Is there a sense of post Phil Taylor darts entering into a new professional era? Is there a factory of teenage Luke Littlers ready to be unleashed right behind him, or is he a complete one-off freak of nature?
I'd say it's way cooler now. Like it's and people can see the prize money. They can see the endorsements. Like he has Xbox written on his shirt. Like they can see the benefits of winning money to buy better Ultimate Team players in FIFA. Like I say, there's a whole horde of children now that are thinking, yeah, I want to be like that. I don't know who the next youth players are coming through. I know that Luke Littler dominated that as well. Obviously.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only when I try and talk to you about like novel things and gaming where I realise how like I don't know anything either.
Yeah.
But like
You're sitting over there like you're like Billy Kid the Cool.
no, but I'm like I know these things like on a surface level. I'm talking to you. You look at me as if I'm talking about some new age phenomenon that has actually been around for like 15 years.
Dear. Okay. So it's been busy couple of weeks in the Keane household on two fronts. Ellen Coyne in the Irish Independent has just charted the timeline, really. Claudine Keane has ultimately requested a meeting with Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou McDonald over what she feels is very unfair treatment of her husband when it comes to his tenure at Maccabee. This has been an ongoing situation. Ellen Coyne details the timeline even before October 7th when Keane first took the job. In fact, I spoke to him on Off the Ball at the time. The Sinn Féin TD Chris Andrews was talking about his disappointment that Keane had joined Maccabee, claimed it was a racist and apartheid Israeli club at the time. In the Dáil, he spoke about it as well. He called on Keane to reconsider his decision. October 7th happened, obviously, as we know. Keane went back to Israel in December of 23. At the time, Mary Lou McDonald, talking generally about sports people and Israel, said, I have a real problem with sport when It is under the remit of an apartheid regime and where genocide is being committed. Leo Varadkar at the time in December was asked about Robbie Keane specifically. He said, I think it's up to him. I'm not calling on him to consider his position at all. Keane stayed. Maccabi won their first league title in 4 years, had a very good season on the pitch. In June of that season, he announced he was leaving with a year left on his contract, and he came home. And I suppose it went quiet then for a time until, you might remember, in November, just before Christmas, there was a photograph released by the FAI of Keane presenting caps to the Irish team ahead of a game. And they put that out online. And the response on Twitter was overwhelmingly negative towards Robbie Keane, I think it's fair to say. And Claudine Keane was very active on Twitter defending Robbie Keane at the time. Chris Andrews, indeed, had called that choice by the FAI as extremely disappointing. Claudine Keane was saying her family didn't feel safe. The attacks have been unfair. I had always felt safe in Ireland until now. And the latest this week, she's asking Mary Lou McDonald to meet her to discuss the issue. She's reached out publicly and through social and traditional media, and personally called the Sinn Féin leader's Cabra office. Sinn Féin, in this piece by Ellen Coyne, have not responded to a request for comment. So that's been ongoing. And I suspect it will be. It's just a bit of a sag at this stage, and we'll see what happens. As for Robbie Keane's appointment, I mean, in footballing terms, we said yesterday, really, really good appointment. And I suppose that still ultimately stands, and that's how he'll see it. I suppose you can just imagine Robbie with his head in his hands at this line. But I suppose from a political point of view, it's not totally uncomplicated. I don't think it's in the same ballpark as Maccabi, but Viktor Orban's Fidesz party are very overtly close to Ferencváros, and that link is there. And the Viktor Orban situation is obviously very interesting, regardless, in that he came to power in 2010. Jonathan Wilson visited Hungary just last year, wrote an interesting piece about the visit and detailed the extent to which Orban's government had pumped and has pumped millions into football. So of their 40 stadiums, they have refurbished 40 stadiums since his return to power in 2010, Orban's return, including the Ferencváros one. Their stadium's amazing. I don't know if you've seen it. Oh, it's a glorious stadium. It loads of tax breaks for clubs. And even at grassroots level, 1,600 new pitches in Hungary. They've refurbished another 3,000 pitches. So this huge investment in football. He loves football. His first ever visit when he was Prime Minister back in the late 90s was to the World Cup final in 98, his first official overseas visit. So football's a big thing. And so that's all fine. They're allowed to try and leverage some feelings of national well-being through sport, and it's not like it's opiate for the masses, because the average attendance in the Hungarian league for games is 3,500. So it's not like these stadiums are necessarily full, but it's on several fronts they're going about this, because they're going to host the Champions League final in 2026 in Budapest in the Puskás Arena. That was just announced in April. So akin to other countries, there's a certain kind of chest out, let's host some big events approach here on Orban's part. He often talks about the 50s when Hungary was the best side in the world. There's an ugly backdrop to Hungarian supporters, a lot of racist abuse. 2021, 3 games behind closed doors. But I suppose where it becomes maybe problematic for Keane, might be too strong a word to use, but where he may face a question or two is about Orban at large in Hungary. So there was an EU report in 2022 so this is 12 years into his reign, EU report sort of said, this isn't actually a full democracy anymore. So there hasn't been done with tanks in the street, there hasn't been a military dictatorship imposed, but it's not a full democracy anymore. Over the 12 years, slowly but surely, things have been pushed in a certain direction. So for instance, the independence of the judiciary, they've changed how judges are appointed, so it's not a very independent judiciary. Press freedom, not good. The state broadcaster has been put under the control of Orban loyalists, and then business people close to him have just bought up all the other media organisations, so press freedom has gone by the wayside. LGBT rights, really not good. Academic freedom's not good. Civil servants have been dispatched of when not wanted. minorities, asylum seekers, treatment of those is not good. So there's a kind of sense they've hollowed out the real substance of democracy, albeit it's a kind of a democracy. And so I guess this is the club that Keane has now joined. I think not having video after video of horror coming through daily on our phones probably means that this won't be as emotive an issue, and therefore I suspect it won't blow up massively for Robbie Keane. But I think he will be asked about it, and he'll say, I stay out of politics. And that might be the end of it, I think.
Who's going to ask him about it, though?
Nobody in Hungary by the looks of the media situation. And I dare say he's not keen on doing media here anytime soon. So, yeah, maybe he'll disappear off over there, try and do a good job, win a couple of leagues, and that'll be that.
Yeah, so like, it's quite layered. The Robbie Keane story is layered. You know, as in his standing in this country, even independent of his management career, is not what you would expect from a record goal scorer. You know, he doesn't demand the love that other countries would probably hold their record goal scorer in for a range of reasons. But if you just take it as a professional pursuit for a moment, because like the only reason I ask who's going to ask him about this new endeavour is because he's obviously a league-winning manager in Israel. If he goes here and does a good job, there's like a plethora of potential avenues in the UK where he could get a fairly significant job. Not least, he's an ex-player of a lot of clubs. But like, just if you take Coventry as a random example, they had a recent management vacancy. It's not beyond the realms that he could end up there. He could make his way up the ladder. Like, what I'm saying, it's not inconceivable that Robbie Keane would be a Premier League manager at some point. And the only thing this is seemingly precluding him from, the only people who are taking grave issue with this is the Irish media, and from a Robbie Keane point of view.
Yeah.
So he's precluding himself potentially from the Ireland senior men's management job, and that's about it. Because like, this is not going to affect his management career.
No, if
going
anything,
forward,
in footballing terms, it's very
if he wins the league over there,
attractive move for him.
yeah, he could. Like, you take Graham Potter for example, and he's been linked with the West Ham job.
Yeah.
He won, or he did well with Ostersunds, who are not, like, with all due respect, like a fairly no mark club in terms of bridge to a meaningful job. But he got the Swansea City job off the back of that, then the Brighton job, then the Chelsea job. You know, I'm just saying, like, Robbie Keane, if you're looking at truly a strictly sporting prism, is climbing the management ladder here.
Yeah, for sure.
Is this another rung in the ladder though? Is like, does winning in Hungary make him more attractive to Coventry? Like,
Well, he's a way bigger name than Graham Potter, though. And Graham Potter got a big job off the back of.
I mean, does it add to his his real achievements?
You know, it wins league with Maccabi for first time in 4 years, Toto Cup as well, then goes to Hungary, wins a league title or two, has a decent run in Europe. Yeah, I think it probably is another rung, or certainly beefs up the CV or supports the suggestion that he did a good job in Israel.
No, of course. I'm just wondering, like, I think it still puts him in around the same area that he could probably command now at the minute if he was getting a job in England. I think.
Maybe.
You know, it obviously does make him a bit more attractive, and he has more success under his belt, more experience.
He's shown it wasn't a one-off season, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think he's still going to have to step on another couple of rungs to get.
He's not getting a Premier League net, man. But Coventry might say, do you know what? There's enough there.
Yeah, but I'd like, I'm just wondering in terms of avoiding the headaches. Now, maybe like it's obviously not as bad right now, and it's not as prevalent in our minds, as you said. Images coming through every day, and like, you know, the Keanes have come out and said, like, you know, we don't condone any violence, and this was a football job, and we got to the end of the contract. But now you're sort of, you know, saying, politically speaking, and then you're listing out a list of reasons why going to Hungary might not be a good thing either. So it's like, to save a headache, or you're going to come in at the same level anyway when you come back, if you want to go to England, if you want to get a job in Ireland. It's I don't think it's going to put him any higher up the ladder in terms of what job he could get.
I suppose I don't suspect it's going to be a huge headache. I don't think. Maybe I'm misreading that situation.
Yeah, probably not.
No, but I'm like, I don't know why I've gone down the Coventry route, but say he's unveiled as the Coventry manager in 2 years, do you think there'll be any questions about this from?
No.
your beat reporter at the
No, I don't.
the Irish media might attend the press conference and ask him, but
No.
they won't be going to Coventry matches every week. You know,
And the same way, Eddie Howe, if had he got the England job, nobody would have said, well, how do you feel about the new... That would have been gone. It would have been like the England manager now.
That is pretty much all that's going on. As you mentioned, West Ham have asked Graham Potter to become their manager. According to reports, they've decided to sack Lopetegui, albeit he's still in the job. And, oh my God, I mean, you jotted this down. This is getting boring. Mo Salah quote tweeted Jamie Carragher.
oh, I thought you were going to let me talk about WWE on Netflix. There.
I think that's very
Could have
interesting.
been either.
Let's do that another time. We don't have time for that. WWE on Netflix is an interesting... Because you've made the point, they've often been one step ahead of sport, and they keep changing the best rights deal. So we'll come back to that. So basically, Jamie Carragher was on Monday Night Football, and he was talking about how Virgil van Dijk has handled this beautifully. He's not so sure about Mo Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And Mo Salah quote tweeted this saying, "I'm starting to think you're obsessed with me." Wink face. Oh, I'm getting so sick of the whole thing.
Sign the contract or
Do whatever you want. I don't care. Just stop. I've reached the threshold now of I think Sunday the Alexander-Arnold discussion. I'm done.
That was too much.
Much like Christmas, I've eaten enough of this.
I know we talked about it on Monday's show, and there's an extensive podcast there, and Damien has way more insight than I do. But like, Alexander Arnold's been brilliant for Liverpool, like Damien said.
Yeah.
That's just... he's had those games before. Like, there was nothing new there, really. He's had those games, and it continued being a brilliant player. Carragher does get... I think it's proper football man stuff where he's used it before with Salah as well. On the week of a big game, he came out and said this. They went and beat Real Madrid when he said that about Salah. And Salah was 2-4, and Salah hasn't stopped since then. Salah's talked all season long, and he's probably online for his best season ever as well.
Yeah. He must be furious, Carragher, that at each point he said, well, this is going to be bad for the dressing room, that they keep going on and winning every match in front of them.
They were saying on the Gary Neville podcast that because there was so much talk about Trent last week that Salah had to talk to Patrick Davison again. It's like, get Patrick Davison on the blower there. People forgot about me. Like, I still haven't signed a contract either.
Yeah, I doubt it.
It's getting a bit like High School Musical, isn't it? Like, just like make a decision. You're 33. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
What's High School Musical? I don't get the reference.
no, I just mean it's like
Childish.
childish politics from Salah. He posted that cryptic, quote unquote, not so cryptic picture of the three people who haven't signed a contract. Do people know what cryptic means? Like, it's quite an easy one to decipher.
What was he getting at?
I think it was just a picture that captured the three people that happened to capture. You put it up
Yeah, I know. It was in
to generate a conversation, but that was it. Like,
it was
it's not insinuating that they're all
going
in cahoots.
It was an amazing picture of the three of them. Just funny that they were caught by that lens. But like, so he tweets it.
Yeah.
And I did think, what does that mean? Is it like there is a degree of look at me every 5 seconds about it?
Oh, big time. That's what I mean. He's a prima donna.
Uh,
He's just amazing at football.
yeah.
I did actually think that free kick that the picture is of. So Trent had this horrific game. And then I was like, he's definitely sticking that in the top corner.
Salah took it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm thinking. Before he took it, I'm thinking Trent's going to score and everyone will forget all about it. And I could hear Carragher saying, what about that for Tranmere Rovers and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other world that could have transpired, but Salah took it.
Yeah. Trent, I agree. Trent has had those types of games many times. It's just, he was probably bad on the ball as well. Like when he gave that ball away in field, that was unlike him. And so if he's doing that, allied to his bad defending, then he's not giving you much.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting sucked into it. I actually don't care. They can do what they want. We'll do a little bit of bits and bobbing on Thursday maybe. Tomorrow we have rugby show, Ian Madigan, Rory O'Connor. We're also going to go stateside. There's some NFL to be discussed. And Friday, we don't know what we're doing.
No, it's a big mystery.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.